afternoon and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. I'm Shritika, the host for this afternoon. For your kind information, Malaysian International Food and Beverage Trade Fair, MIFB, provides an opportunity to F&B business traders to revitalize the business through an exclusive B2B platform with power-packed F&B services and solution providers. Today, we are presenting the many applications and benefits of palm oil, which will be presented by Ms. Arish Taufik from Malaysian Palm Oil Council. And just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. I will bring them up at the end of the presentation, as we will also have time for the Q&A at the end. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Ms. Arish Taufik. Our presenter today is representing Malaysian Palm Oil Council to highlight about the various food applications of palm oil, its fractions, and its nutritional benefits. Let's welcome her. Ms. Harish.
Hi, Shritika. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Right. Okay, so shall I start? Okay. Let me just share my screen. All right, hello everybody. I hope you are safe and well. I'm Arish Taufik, as mentioned by Ms. Ritika before. I'm representing the Malaysian Palm Oil Council. And today I'm taking you through the many food applications and benefits of palm oil. So just to give you guys a bit of a background info, the palm oil industry governance is as such. It is under the Ministry of Plantation Industries and Commodities, MPIC, and the key agencies are MPOB, which is the research arm, and then you have us, MPOC, which is the marketing and promotion arm, and then you have Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council, MPOCC, which is primarily in charge of certification schemes. Yeah. Right. Okay, let's look at the global context. Okay, why palm oil is such a popular oil, okay, vegetable oil. Let me just, okay. Now, if you look at the chart here in the middle, the global oils and fat supply, right? You can see palm oil holds the biggest chunk of the pie. In fact, palm oil has surpassed soybean oil being the most popular vegetable oil for the last couple of years. And it is widely used in not just food, also in oleochemicals, biofuels, and also as renewable energy resource, biomass. Just to give you guys some added information. Now, these two graphs show, one on the left, it shows the land use of oil crops, and on the right, it shows the oil yield. Okay, so oil yield usually we go by ton per hectare, and the land size on the left would be in hectare. So in 2018, our World in Data came out with the report, right? In the year 2017, 300 million hectares were devoted for oil crop production. Now, there are 17 vegetable oil crops produced around the globe, but these are the major ones. And as you can see, palm oil on the left, as you can see, palm oil is at the very bottom, accounting only 6%, i.e. 9 million hectare of the total 300 million hectare land use. But despite that, it is the most productive oil. Okay, on the right, you can see it tops the chart. Okay, it produces 4 tons per hectare, and you can see right below it, sunflower oil is not even producing 1 ton per hectare. So the difference between, in terms of productivity between palm oil and other oils, are significantly large, considering that palm oil does not use a lot of land to begin with. And in fact, palm oil occupies only 0.4%, yeah, not even 1% of total agricultural area around the world, which includes livestock. Okay. Some facts of Elaeus guineacis, which is the scientific name of the oil palm tree. So this tree actually originated in the tropical rainforest region of West Africa. okay, in the African region. And basically, yes, it's a tree and it has the economic lifespan between 25 to 30 years, which means that you plant it once and you can continue to harvest it for the next 25 years at least, okay? And it has between 10 to 21 days of cycle to produce one bunch of fruit. So there are a few bunches. So to produce one bunch would take 10 to 21 days. And every bunch would produce 1,000 to 3,000 fruits, okay? And the weight, the average weight of each bunch is around 50 kg. And the harvesting cycle is every 10 to 15 days. And at the moment, Malaysia still manages to maintain more than 50% forest coverage. Okay, so for your information, just to give you a little history information, historical information, it came to the country in Malaysia in 1807, but it was only commercially planted in 1917 in Selangor. So the very first plantation was in fact in Selangor. Right, so let's get to know the oil palm fruit. Okay, as I mentioned before, the bunch. So this is how the fruit bunch looks like, yeah, at the top. Kind of like a whole banana bunch, as you can imagine. So the bunch is made up of individual fruits, okay? And when you cut it open, you get something like this one in the middle. Okay, so basically, the oils that come from the oil palm tree comes from the fruit itself, i.e. the seed or kernel and the flesh or mesocarp. Okay, those are the names. And you get crude palm kernel oil from the kernel and you get crude palm oil from the flesh. But when you refine the crude oils, you get palm kernel oil and also palm oil. And when you further fractionate, okay, separate them, and you get palm kernel olein, palm kernel stearin, palm olein, and palm stearin. Okay, so basically, olein refers to the liquid fraction, while stearin refers to the solid fraction. Now, if you didn't know, palm oil or palm kernel oil are semi-solid oils. Okay, so I'll show you some photos a bit later, but they are semi-solid. So when you say fractionate or separate, you want to separate the solid and the liquid components, okay, so that you have two different types of oils or fats. Okay, and so this is basically the fatty acid composition of these two major groups, okay, palm kernel oil and palm oil. So palm kernel oil, as you can see, it is mainly saturated fatty acid. Okay, in fact, it has a very similar composition as coconut and cocoa butter. Okay, and I'll show you guys a bit later. And as for palm oil, it's balanced. It's very balanced. Okay, it has 50% saturated fatty acid, and the balance 50% is made of. It comprises of 40% monounsaturated fatty acid, MOFA, and 10% is POFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid. So basically, palm oil is 50% saturated and 50% unsaturated, right? And the major type of fatty acid in palm oil is palmitic acid, which is about 45%, and in palm kernel oil is lauric acid, which is about 49%. So this is basically how it looks like, right? So the crude version would be something like the ones at the top, okay? But it's very, the crude palm oil is very dark in color, okay? So as you can see, the solid fractions are at the bottom, right? And the liquid is at the top. So when you process it further through fractionation, which is a physical process, it's not even a chemical process, and you get the olein and the stearin separated. Okay, so that's why you can get, so basically you have like 1, 2, 3, you have like 6 types of oils already with different fatty acid composition, different solid fat content. So this means that they have different functions. Okay, they can function differently in foods or anything that it can be applied in. Okay, so just to show you guys, basically this is this is how the fractions, this is what the fractions are used for mainly. Okay, so you get the crude, as I mentioned before, and you refine, you get refined, bleached, deodorized palm oil, refined palm kernel oil. Okay, and then you get, and you can further fractionate that. So you can use it for so many things. As you can see here, you can use it to make fillings, frying oil, soup mixes, cake mixes, okay, confectionery, biscuits, creamer, even in ice cream. And we'll get to this further later, okay? Right. So as I said, palm oil is has a balanced fatty acid content. So you have palm oil right here, and this is in comparison to other types of major vegetable oils. So as you go further to the right, the stability decreases, and as you go further to the left, the stability increases. So when you talk about stability, mostly you're concerned about the stability of the oil when it's being cooked. Okay, so for instance, like in frying, in deep frying, as you go further to the right, it's not stable for deep frying or even continuous industrial frying. Okay, it's not stable. But as you go to the left, it's more stable. So some of the oils that have, as you can see, as you go more to the right, the level of polyunsaturated, okay, the one in the light blue, increases. So that is why the stability decreases, okay? And some of these oils on the right, they are commonly partially hydrogenated. Okay, it is a process whereby, because they are not stable, they are made stable through a process called partial hydrogenation, which I will explain later in my presentation. Okay, but this process sadly is not so popular now. A lot of manufacturers in a lot of countries are phasing out products that use partially hydrogenated vegetable oils because it would generate trans fatty acids, which is harmful for our health. Now, trans fatty acids, there are two types. One is the natural type, and one is the one that I'm talking about, which is the industrially produced trans fat. So the natural type, you can get it from animal, usually animal source, from meat or anything, and it's completely fine. Okay, and it's usually in a minuscule amount. Okay, not a large amount. But the industrially produced trans fatty acid that you get from processing these oils through partial hydrogenation is harmful to our health. Okay. Now, these are the major food applications when it comes to palm oil, right? Of course, we all, I think most of us, we would use palm oil mainly for frying, right? For cooking, especially on the stove. So use it to deep fry, use it to shallow fry. So that is like the number one food application when it comes to palm oil. And then next we have, we also have bakery fats. Okay, palm oil is also used to make margarine and shortening. And in most cases, it is blended with other types of vegetable oils to produce margarine and shortening. And then it's also used as vanaspati, used to make vanaspati. So vanaspati is the vegetarian version of ghee, okay, which is a solid frying medium. Okay, it's like clarified butter, but for vegetarian people. Okay, so but this one is not really popular in Indonesia. It's mostly popular in India. Okay, and then you also have cocoa butter substitute, where mainly it can substitute cocoa butter in confectionery fats applications. So when you want to make chocolate or you want to make any kind of confectionery products, you can use palm oil and its fractions to instead of cocoa butter, because cocoa butter tends to be expensive. Okay, and then also you have dairy fat substitute, okay, where palm-based fat is used to replace dairy fat in ice cream formulation. So basically, it complements and enhances the functions of dairy fat in terms of flavor, texture, and mouthfeel, because it's able to give you more or less the same solid fat content of dairy fat from animals. And then you also have all these other applications. You have special animal fat replacer, where it contributes fewer or no calories to formulated foods. And also, for your information, just to remind you that palm oil is cholesterol free, okay, because it is from a plant. Cholesterol can only come from animals, okay. So when you replace dairy fat or animal fat with palm oil, you are actually eliminating cholesterol already, okay. So and it's also used as a emulsifier and stabilizer. Okay, so as an emulsifier, you use it in making, like mayonnaise or vinaigrette, homogenized milk, all these things that would require an emulsifier that helps to like combine oils and water-based components in a formulation, right? And also as a stabilizer, okay, it helps to like stabilize oil dispersions to impart smooth texture, especially in peanut butter spreads. Okay, because if you don't have a stabilizer, if you make it at home, for instance, and you don't use like palm oil or any oil, for instance, that is suitable to be a stabilizer, the solid nuts would just separate from the oil layer of the peanut butter lah. So you get like a separation there. And then you also have santan sawit. Okay, santan sawit is very similar to coconut milk, or you can say palm oil milk. Okay, it functions more or less the same as coconut milk. Okay, so basically you can use it to cook any dishes that you would typically use coconut milk. Nasi lemak, cendol, to a certain extent rendang or anything. Yes, you can use it. In fact, it is slightly cheaper and it lasts longer, as you may typically know if you cook with santan a lot. You know that santan doesn't really last that long, but santan sawit or palm oil milk, you can put it in the fridge in an airtight container for 2 to 3 weeks, and you can still use it. Okay, and then you have cheese analog. Okay, like I mentioned before, you can use palm oil to replace dairy fat. Okay, so because it's able to mimic more or less the same solid fat profile of milk fat, and it imparts you the same texture and taste similar as dairy cheese. Okay, so that's why sometimes a lot of manufacturers that produce cheese, they tend to replace certain level of their dairy, their milk fat with palm oil. Okay, and then you also have creamers. Okay, you can also substitute dairy cream milk with palm oil. It lasts, the product would have a longer shelf life. Okay, and it also lowers the production cost lah. And then lastly, it is also used in infant formula. Okay, it's basically used in the blends to match the fatty acid profile of human milk, right? Because human milk contains 20 to 25% of palmitic acid, which, like I mentioned before, is the major fatty acid in palm oil. It's also a fatty acid that you can find in human breast milk, right? So 20 to 25% is palmitic acid. So that's why there's palm oil can be used to create infant formula, because it can mimic it can match the fatty acid profile of infant formula, right? So like I mentioned before, frying, right? Frying is the #1 use, the most popular application when it comes to palm oil. So what is frying actually? We need to first understand what frying is. So basically it's a cooking method where you immerse food in heated medium in oil at a temperature of 150 degrees to 180 degrees. Okay, so when you fry, basically you are transferring heat from this medium, this oil, to the food that you're frying with. Okay, it's a heat transfer mechanism. And then at the same time, you're also removing, expelling water from the food. So that's why when as you fry, you notice that the food shrinks, right? It becomes, the shape sort of like gets smaller, it shrinks in size, okay? And also, the oil itself is a source of flavor and aroma, okay? So certain oils, like let's say soybean oil or even peanut oil, they have certain flavor, kan? But when it comes to palm oil, it does not impart any flavor or aroma. It's very neutral. Okay, so that's why a lot of manufacturers would prefer to fry with palm oil if you do not want to alter or change the flavor of the food that you're frying with now. Okay, but if you want, added flavor and aroma, you can always use certain type of oils that will impart flavor and aroma. And then it also modifies food texture and it makes food palatable. Of course, we all love our food crispy and crunchy. And it's also a great source of vitamins, right? And fatty acids, obviously, it provides you energy. It gives you the right amount of calorie that you need to carry out the day. And it provides lubricity between food and fryer. Okay, so that's why even when you use air fryer, the latest trend nowadays to use air fryers, right? Even when you use that, you still need a little bit of oil, like 1 spoon of oil. And when you bake, you still need to drizzle some oil or whatever it is that you fancy. So because lubrication is still needed when it comes to heating up food, okay? And then, but then when you fry, despite all these things that happens to the food that are desirable, the oil itself will begin to deteriorate. Okay, as you heat the oil and as you heat the oil with something, okay, when there's food in the oil, it will begin to deteriorate. Okay, the oil would react with its environment. So the reactions are such as hydrolysis, oxidation, and polymerization. So these are the three deterioration processes that can deteriorate this oil. So what is it actually? So hydrolysis, okay, is actually when water in the food itself, okay, because food usually contains water, yeah, chicken or whatever, there's always a bit of water in it, right? So when you fry that food in oil, the water would cause the oil to the fatty acid of the oil to break down, okay? And when that happens throughout time as you fry, there will be free fatty acids, okay? So this free fatty acid will cause, the decrease of smoke point, and it would make the oil more susceptible to oxidation, right? So so it basically cascades to the next deterioration process, right? So oxidation, for example, is actually just simply a reaction of hot oil with oxygen, okay? But more so specifically unsaturated oil. Okay, unsaturated oil, so basically it would actually produce rancidity in oil. So in local language you say tengik. So that is when you know that oxidation has taken place, okay? And when this happens, usually you notice that there's off flavor and smell. And this also initiates the other deterioration process, which is polymerization. So polymerization basically, if you notice after a while when you fry, the oil becomes viscous. Okay, it's like a bit thicker than it was at the beginning of the frying process. So that's when polymerization has somewhat taken place. Okay, so the oil becomes, the food that you fry the oil with, okay, the oil that has become more viscous becomes greasy. Okay, so, and then it will develop, you know, undesirable flavor and also color in the food. And basically when polymerization takes place, the food will absorb a lot of oil. Okay, so you don't want that. So basically, because of when you take these deterioration processes into consideration, you will come to you will have to, when you consider this, you will notice that palm oil is ideal for frying compared to all the other oils, because it is able to withstand these deterioration processes. Okay, it is highly stable at high cooking temperatures, right? Because of its level, its fatty acid composition, as I showed you earlier, it's a balanced oil. So it has a high level of saturated fatty acid, which is stable at high cooking temperatures as compared to unsaturated fatty acid. Okay, and it's high, and it has high oxidative stability and resistance to oxidation, right? So, and it also much more resistant towards polymerization process. So the food that you cook with palm oil would absorb oil much less than when you cook it with other types of oil. Okay, so in the end, it would also produce less volatile compounds. So volatile compounds meaning compounds that sort of like that are released to the environment as you fry. Okay, so these compounds sometimes they stick to the wall and all that, so you get sticky wall when you fry, you know. So that those are volatile compounds. When you fry with palm oil, that less likely to happen. Okay, right. Now, in palm oil, there are natural antioxidants. Okay, vitamin E are natural antioxidants you can find in palm oil, which helps to a certain extent improve that stability of the palm oil that I spoke earlier. But also recently we found that you can also enhance this stability by using other natural antioxidants. Okay, you can use pandan leaf extract. Okay, recently there was research done on this. You can use pandan leaf extract as antioxidant on palm oil during deep frying, right? So it enhances oxidative stability of the pandan extract. Yeah, it enhances oxidative stability of the palm oil during deep frying, and somehow it was found in the study that oxidation of the palm oil used was found to decrease with an increase in the concentration of pandan extract in the oil. And you can also additionally, another study has also found that you can also use kaffir lime leaves, curry leaves, and turmeric leaves as added natural antioxidants, okay, during frying. Right, so let's talk about another application. Okay, let's talk about baking with palm oil. So again, same thing, it's also a heat transfer process. And when you basically when it comes to baking, the role of fat is to provide tenderness, right? Improves overall texture, gives you that nice mouthfeel, and extends shelf life, provides lubrication and structural integrity. So when you bake, okay, you need to use butter, right? Or certain or in some cases you use oil. So when you bake, you need oil or fat to provide that structural integrity. Okay, so when it helps to sort of create better chemical structure. Okay, because you mix eggs and flour and all these things together, so you need fats and oil to sort of bring them together and provide that that good structure. So when you have the good structure, you can then retain gas bubble. So that's why when you look at bread, right, you can see there are air pockets. You can see all these little holes, right? So that is due to a part of it is due to fat. Okay, and also when you bite into a bread, you can feel some kind of wetness when you bite into the bread. So that is because of that is due to the presence of fat in the formulation. Okay, and also it extends, when you say extends shelf life, because of after you bake it, okay, once the baked good is produced, okay, due to the presence of fats, the lubrication that it provides in the structure helps to extend the shelf life of the baked good. Okay, so basically, in lots of baking applications, you would need the fat to be semi-solid in nature, which of course palm oil is semi-solid already. And you need a baking fat that has good aeration, okay, and so that it can retain the gas bubble, and also good plasticity. So plasticity is basically the ability to be spread and shaped, okay, especially when it comes to pastry making, yeah, layering. You want to layer the pastry sheets, so you will need a baking fat that has good plasticity. So this is why palm oil is ideal for baking. Okay, it provides a good aerated structure in bread. This is proven based on reviews that we have done. Okay, on previous research studies, it is proven that palm oil provides good aerated structure in bread, good plasticity for pastry making, provides creaming properties, and provide oxidative stability. Right. So I just want to share with you guys. Okay. I noticed how lately a lot of people are saying margarine is fake butter. It's not it's not healthy. It should be avoided. A lot of people are coming out with these claims, and I think it's saddening because margarine is an alternative to butter, right? It is can say it's the vegetarian version of butter. If you cannot consume butter due to some diet restrictions, then you have margarine. Okay, so basically, whatever you cook, whatever you produce butter for, okay, let's say you want to bake with it or whatever, you can use margarine as well. Okay, so you can substitute, right, butter with margarine. So just a simple this is just a simple comparison between the two. But firstly, margarine is mainly from vegetable oils. So that's why sometimes when you go to the market, you see pictures of sunflower or whatever. That's because it is made of sunflower oil, for instance. And it comprises of at least 80% fat and at most 16% water. It's cholesterol free, as I mentioned before, and it's much cheaper than butter. Okay, whereas butter is made from milk fat and comprises of the same thing, 80% fat and at most 18% water, but it contains cholesterol. Okay, so again, margarines are cholesterol free. And unlike other vegetable margarines, palm-based ones are trans fat free, okay, because of the semi-solid nature of palm oil. Margarines that are 100% palm-based or are blended with palm oil fractions tend to be trans fat free, okay. And whereas for butter, it's much higher in saturated fatty acid, which is not a bad thing, okay. And it has also some low proportions of trans fatty acids, the natural ones, okay. And it doesn't, when it comes to palm-based margarines, okay, they do not lower high density lipoprotein HDL or good cholesterol. But in some cases for butter, it may increase the bad cholesterol LDL, okay. And in terms of calorie, you consume 1 tablespoon of margarine, it would only give you 75 calories, whereas for butter, 1 tablespoon is 100 calories, okay? Right, so as I mentioned before, partial hydrogenation and trans fat, yeah? So this is a process that is becoming less popular, but it is still important for you to understand this because there are still products that carry this kind of product, okay, this kind of fats, okay. So basically, hydrogenation is simply turning liquid oil into solid, okay. by, with the assistance of a catalyst, right? So it is a process that has its levels lah. So it's like if you go one level, it's probably not going to be that solid. But if you go all the way, it's going to be completely solid, like what do you call that? Not like butter, the other one. Shortening. Okay, shortening. So, but when it comes to palm oil, because it's already semi-solid, it does not have to go through this process whatsoever. Okay, and basically, if you want, as I explained to you before, if you want the solid fraction, just separate the solid and the liquid. Okay, but for cases like oils, soft oils, we call them soft oils, oils that are completely liquid at room temperature. Okay, for oils that are high in POFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid, such as sunflower oil, soybean oil. These type of oils, they would require this process. Why? Because as I showed before, they are not stable. They are less stable than, let's say, palm oil when it comes to certain applications, okay, like frying, for instance. So you would need to partially hydrogenate them just to give them a little bit of solidness, okay, in order for them to have higher melting point, and in turn making them more stable when it comes to frying application, for example. However, this process would produce industrially produced trans fats, okay, ITFA. So this is the kind of compound that you want to completely avoid because it just stays in your body, right? It's very difficult to break down. So the reason the reason why a lot of these polyunsaturated fatty acid oils, oils that are high in POFA, okay, are less stable, much less stable than palm oil, is because of the high level of linolenic acid. So most of these oils have very high level of linolenic acid, whereas like palm oil, as I mentioned before, is very high in palmitic acid. So linolenic acid is very susceptible to oxidation during frying. So that is why they are naturally not as stable as palm oil. Okay. However, these days, right, a lot of manufacturers have also begun to blend the oils. They produce oil blends instead of partially hydrogenating oil. So they blend oils that are less stable or weak, okay, with oils that are much more stable, like palm oil. Okay, so blending is a process of modifying fats and oils. So you produce desired properties, okay, and extends range of applications. So for instance, if you want, like in terms of frying, right, you want the oil to have higher melting point, then you blend it with something that has a much higher melting point. So it depends on what the application is, what you want to use it for. So that's the beauty of blending, okay? So in a lot of cases, palm oil is used to blend with this unstable oils because it has a neutral taste. So for instance, if you want the high melting property of palm oil, but you still want to retain, let's say, the flavor of peanut oil, then you blend the two together. Okay, so that's basically the idea of blending. So that's why when you see in food packaging and you see it says oil blend or whatever, don't get scared. Okay, it's just basically blending the oils together to get the properties that the manufacturer wants, right? So this is used in shortening, margarine, and banaspati. Okay, and palm oil. So basically, in shortening, right? Let me just look at my note. So some shortening can be tailor-made for specific food products. So for cakes, for cookies, crackers, breads, pastries, sometimes you require certain properties, so you blend them differently. Okay, and even for margarine, same thing. You have bakery margarine, you have table margarine, the one that's readily spread for for toast, for instance, and specialized puff pastry margarine. as well as low calorie or reduced fat spreads. Okay, so these would require specific blends as well. And also for vanaspati, there are demands for vanaspati with granular and smooth texture. Certain regions, the market demand is they want granular vanaspati, okay, a bit more coarse. But some regions want a more smooth vanaspati. So this would require specific formulations, or blending to a certain extent would help this, okay. Right. So let's so that's pretty much the applications like in general, okay, when it comes to palm oil and its fractions, right? So let's look at the nutritional, the health component. And I'm going to start off with this, okay? For 50 years at least, we have been brainwashed, so to speak, that saturated fat is bad for our health. Okay. Back in 1961, Dr. Ansel Keys claimed that saturated fatty acid clog arteries and cause heart disease. So this was done based on his study. So he did a study analyzing data from 7 countries. I think some of them were Japan, United States, I think. And they found so based on the countries that he selected, he found that saturated fatty acid clog arteries and cause heart disease. However, when other researchers analyze his data, his studies again, and they found that that what best correlated with heart disease was not, in fact, saturated fat intake, but sugar intake. Okay, because in those times, in the early days, the role of carbohydrates wasn't given much attention. It was all about, oh, this fat is bad, that fat is bad. In fact, if you can recall, for many years, we were indoctrinated to believe that the egg yolk is very bad for health because it contains high cholesterol level or something like that, right? But nowadays that has been debunked. So science is it's an ongoing process. Okay, there's always a research that can prove the previous research is, not to say wrong, but may have lacked certain, certain attributes or certain data set or whatever. And so recently, at least since 2004 or so, at least for the last 10 years, studies have shown that there is no significant evidence to conclude that saturated fatty acid is associated with an increased risk of coronary heart disease or cardiovascular disease. Now, don't get confused. Cardiovascular disease is the main group, right? So coronary heart disease is a part of CVD. So when you say coronary heart disease, it is definitely a CVD, but not all CVD, not all cardiovascular disease is a coronary heart disease, okay? So also another thing is there has been no statistical correlation found between palmitic acid of more than 10% of total calories and coronary heart disease, right? And trans fat from partially hydrogenated vegetable oil is the only fat that shows the worst outcomes for heart disease and also diabetes. Another study also found that due to high melting point, saturated fatty acid is solid at body temperature and therefore is not efficiently absorbed and are largely excreted along with feces. I was mind blown when I found out about this. Okay, it means that it's pretty much just excreted from the body. Okay, this was a finding from one of the most recent studies, right? And also studies have also shown that highly processed carbohydrates are actually more harmful to health than saturated fats. Okay, so just remember that anything that you eat, there's always a certain level that you have to limit yourself to. Okay, so for instance, like a typical adult, you can eat 20 to 35% of your total calories. Okay, and within that percentage, okay, you can break it down further. Monounsaturated fat between 15 to 20, polyunsaturated between 5 and 10, and then saturated fatty acid less than 10%. Okay, so yeah, basically you just have to like plan your diet and sort of look at the ingredients and what you're eating, but never ever label something as completely bad. Okay, because the level that you eat it can be minuscule, it can be very small and significantly small, that it will not really cause an increased risk of a coronary heart disease or any cardiovascular disease, right? So further, more research have also shown that palm oil does not increase the total blood cholesterol or the bad LDL cholesterol levels. And palm oil has also showed similar effects on the level of total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol when compared with MOFA and POFA rich oils, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated rich oils. For instance, like you see on the right side, the graph here, the charts here from 2 studies, they have shown that palm oil and olive oil have similar effects on blood cholesterol profiles. Okay, and neutral effect of saturated fat in the diet on total blood cholesterol or HDL ratio have also been found, and an increase in HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol, was more apparent following the consumption of palm oil than the MOFA rich oil. So these are just findings from studies. Okay. Right. So what are the nutritional benefits of palm oil? Okay, so apart from supplying you with fats, which is essential for your calorie intake, okay, you need it for your energy, right? And you need it, of course, to help regulate other things in your body, producing and regulating hormones, for instance, and storing energy, protecting vital organs. Okay, and also as a more importantly, it is a vehicle for vitamins such as A, D, E, and K. Okay, so because these are fat soluble vitamins, right? So you will need fat. You will still need to consume fat in order to consume these vitamins into your body. Okay. So the major phytonutrients in palm oil, phyto as in plant, so nutrient, phytonutrient. So tocos, which are vitamin E, actually, types of vitamin E. So you have tocotrienols and tocopherols. So these are the 2 types of vitamin E. And then you have carotenoids, which carotenoids are precursor of vitamin A. So when you consume carotenoid, your body would convert it to vitamin A or retinol. Okay, the other name is retinol. Right. So generally, according to Harvard University, some of the sources of vitamin E include wheat germ oil, peanuts, spinach, avocado, palm oil, and the list goes on, right? But palm oil is one of the major source of vitamin E. And vitamin E is, as I mentioned, fat-soluble vitamin, which is divided into 2 separate groups. Okay, you have tocopherol and tocotrienol. And within these 2 groups, there are different isomers. So tocopherol and tocotrienol each have 4 isomers. So you have 8 different chemical forms in total. Okay, and these isomers, they all have different structures. Okay, they have different chemical structures. So when a compound has a different chemical structure, they would function differently from one another, right? So, okay, just for your information, right? Deficiencies of vitamin E, may include anemia, impairment of immune response, and neuromuscular and neurological problems. Right, so these are some of the health benefits of vitamin E, the potential health benefits through intake of tocopherols and tocotrienols. Okay, it helps with cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and obesity. So basically, if you look at this chart, okay, it shows you the tocopherol and tocotrienol content of common edible oils. Okay, but if you look at this chart, rice bran appears at the top. Okay, it has the most level of tocopherol and tocotrienol. Comes at second. However, studies have shown that tocotrienols, okay, exhibit higher antioxidant ability than tocopherol. So as you can see in palm oil, you get more tocotrienol than tocopherol. So in other words, it has its antioxidant activity is substantially high. Okay, and you may wonder why don't we consume rice bran oil then? Okay, well, it's when it comes to feasibility, it's really not that feasible. Okay, because it has to come from rice, but also because when you consume too much of rice bran oil, you can get this condition called hypocalcemia, which is the condition where the level of calcium in your body, in your blood, is too low. Okay, and also because of its fibrous nature, it may cause irritation in irritable bowel syndrome. Okay, so that is why the next thing that you can consume is palm oil. Right, so these are the known health benefits of palm vitamin E tocotrienols. Okay, not just any tocotrienols, but the ones that come from palm. Okay, palm oil. So from Excelvite, the company that produces palm vitamin E tocotrienol supplements and other products from palm oil, basically it's neuroprotective. It protects against toxic buildup in brain that may cause Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, and potentially it can also stop or stunt potential growth of cancer cells, and also stop the proliferation of cancer cells. Okay, and it's also good for bone health, protects against osteoporosis because it's an antioxidant. So it would stop inflammation or any oxidation processes. Okay, and it's also good for hair and skin, where it combats oxidative stress on the scalp and the skin. Okay, in fact, the UV light in the sunlight can cause oxidative reaction on the skin, and because tocotrienol is such a good antioxidant, it will help to combat that, right? Okay, so palm vitamin E tocotrienols has its benefit when it comes to frying. As I mentioned before, palm oil has its natural antioxidant, right? So it is palm vitamin E tocotrienol. So usually when it comes to frying, especially a typical household like in Malaysia, where frying and deep frying are very common, so we tend to reuse our frying oil, okay, because we feel like it's still fresh, still new, and we tend to use it again for repeated frying application, right? So a study has shown that you can do that. Okay, you can go to this site and have a read at it. This is something that we produce. So up to 5 times, okay, you can still use it. Of course, provided that you use less. You use more dry ingredients to fry the oil with, and not wet ingredient, because when you use items that are very high in water content, it would expedite the hydrolysis process that I mentioned before. So it also depends on those other factors as well. But typically, but based on this research, okay, this study, it shows that up to 5 times, it is still safe for consumption. Okay, reuse palm oil. After 5 frying sessions, it's still safe, because it is still within the limit of the American Oil Chemists Society, which is at 10 MEQ per kg oil. Okay, so it's still below that limit. So in a way, it's still safe. But of course, I'm not encouraging you to reuse, but if in the instance where you need to reuse and the foods that you fry it with are relatively dry and there's not much interaction with water, then it's still pretty much safe. Okay. Right, so let's talk about another type of oil. So this was not shown in the charts that I showed you much earlier because Malaysian red palm oil is refined using a special method. Okay, you take the crude, basically the crude palm oil is like very deep red color. Okay, and it has this flavor, flavor that's like not really acceptable, organoleptically acceptable. Okay, so that's why you need to refine the palm oil. But when you refine the palm oil, the typical frying oil that I explained before, you will lose some of the phytonutrients lah, like provitamin A, carotenoids. So red palm oil is produced specifically to solve that issue. Okay, so you refine it under a certain temperature, just not to the extent, not the same extent as a typical palm oil, so that you can still retain that provitamin A carotenoid. So it is the provitamin A carotenoid that gives the red palm oil its red color, because it's actually a red pigment, right? And as I mentioned before, when you consume it, it will be converted into vitamin A in our body, right? So how do you use red palm oil? So basically, it's like you can use it as how you would use a typical olive oil, okay? Making salad dressing, stir frying, and even to a certain extent, you can also bake with, not to a certain extent, you can bake it with red palm oil. Right, so for your information, the red palm oil, the retinol equivalence of red palm oil compared with other foods is as such, okay? So as you can see, it is very high in carotenoid, right? About 500 to 700 part per million ppm per 100 mg edible portion, compared to carrots, tomatoes, even orange juice. So next time someone tells you to consume your carrots, you say no, consume your red palm oil, okay? Because the level, the amount of carotenoids is so much higher. It's 15 times more than carrots and 50 times more tomatoes, 44 times more than leafy vegetables, 1,000 times more in bananas, and 3,000 or over than 3,000 times more than orange juices. Right. So these are some of the benefits of red palm oil or RPO that have been proven by studies, previous studies. So you can actually, in fact, use it during lactation, okay, where it decreases incidence of maternal anemia, increases alpha and beta carotene in breast milk and maternal infant plasma, increases retinol concentrations in lactating women. And you can read further on this at this website, okay. And also, it was a proven treatment for vitamin A deficiency. So there was a study done where the subjects were students from South Africa, Tanzania, Nigeria, in India, Burkina Faso, and what they did was they gave the kids fortified biscuits, right? So it was worrying because vitamin A deficiency in children can cause visual impairment, okay, blindness, and risk of infection and stunting. Okay, stunted growth can be caused by lack of vitamin A. Yeah? So what they did was they fortified the biscuit with beta carotene from RPO, and they distributed it to the subjects. And it was found that there was an increase in blood retinol levels. And many studies conducted to evaluate the impact of red palm oil supplementation on the blood carotenols level showed positive impact. Right, and then I think we're on to the last slide. So oil palm phenolics is just another type of nutrient phytonutrient that you can get from the tree, okay? But this one is not from the oil. It's a water-soluble oil palm phenolic. So basically, it's from the fruit itself. Okay, and surprisingly, you can get it from the. You can actually extract it from the waste, the bio waste from the producer, the milling during the refining process, during the processes, and you can extract and you can get the OPP, and it is available in powder and liquid form. So it is ideal for various food and beverage application, but more suited for beverage lah, because it's in liquid and powder form. So you can mix it to come out with like a drink, you know. It is, and it can also be produced as a nutritional supplement. Okay, some of the properties, it is an antioxidant. Okay, helps in preventing and reducing formation of free radicals. It also has anti-inflammatory property, okay, where it reduces the buildup of fat or cholesterol in and on the walls of artery. And it's also cardioprotective, where particularly in the regulation of inflammation, inhibition of platelet aggregation, vascular protection, lowering of blood pressure, so on and so forth. There's so many things that OPP is good for. So it's still quite new in the market. I think it's not really popular in the market yet. I think not many companies have begun commercializing this, but it definitely has its merits and it's definitely worth pursuing. Yeah. So yeah, that is all from me. I'm sure you have some questions. I see there are 12. And if we run out of time, please do not hesitate to contact me via rich@npoc.org.my. You can also go to, you can visit the NPOC website, npoc.org.my. And yeah, just I hope we can collaborate, and I hope I can also attend to your questions. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms.
Back
Arish,
to you,
for the
host.
presentation. It was very informative, and I hope the audience and I have gained a lot of information on palm oil today. So let's go ahead and take some time for questions now. And just a reminder again for the audience, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel. Yeah. And let's go for the questions now. Our first question is, cooking oil is under kernel or mesocarp?
Cooking oil is mesocarp. Yeah, as I showed before, mesocarp, the flesh. So you get crude palm oil, and then from crude palm oil, you can process that to get refined, bleached, deodorized palm oil. And then you can fractionate that to have the solid fraction, which is palm oil stearine, or the liquid fraction palm olein, which is the one that we use for frying. Okay, the one that we buy, the one that has recently increased in price, that is palm olein.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is answered, Mr. Vicky Ng. And the next question is, if it is cholesterol free, then why it is said that margarine is more harmful than butter?
I just mentioned in my presentation, it doesn't do that. Okay. That's why I think when you go on the internet, you need to, when you read an article, you come across an article, do a bit of research, and find out, okay, what are the things that are being compared with. Okay, so in this case, margarine and butter.
Yeah, many resources. Yes.
Yeah, so mainly because of saturated fat, they always target saturated fat as being the one that is bad. But recent studies have shown that it doesn't actually do that. The correlation, the link is very weak. So there's no substantial evidence to prove that saturated fat is bad. Yeah.
Right.
So I think people should maybe
it's informative today. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the third question is, palm oil is processed from the kernel and mesocarp. Which one is healthier?
It's not about which one is healthier, but
kind of
because
very
both,
good question. Yeah,
because both have different saturated fatty acid composition. As I showed in my presentation, the palm kernel oil or oils from the kernel have very high saturated fatty acid, and the oils from the flesh, the mesocarp, has rather balanced. So maybe if you want a balanced fatty acid composition, you can go for the mesocarp oil. Okay, but if you so if that is your concern, but of course when you talk about applications, if you want higher level of saturated fatty acid, which is more stable and is ideal for certain food applications, then you have to go for kernel.
All right. Okay. And the following question is, please provide examples of highly processed carbohydrates.
Oh, I think highly processed, you know, like those frozen fries or anything that you can get from the market. Yeah, those are highly processed carbs. Anything that is sourced from natural carbohydrate and is processed in so many processes, basically that's highly processed already. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And another question is, can you drink red palm oil directly like coconut and olive oil?
Which palm oil?
Red palm oil.
Actually,
Directly like coconut
yes,
and olive
I
oil.
don't think, I think I forgot to mention, you can consume it as a supplement. It is sold in the market as a supplement. Yeah. So you can, it is pretty much like olive oil. Yeah.
Same goes to the coconut oil, isn't it? So it's pretty
Yeah,
much.
coconut, yeah.
All right.
Certain,
Okay. And another last question maybe. Sometimes we can see palm oil become cloudy or solidify in cooler areas such as hypermarket. Is it still safe to be consumed? Is there any way to prevent the oil from being so?
To say to prevent, there are few, it depends on how the manufacturer process, but that is what you call cloud formation. So it's a degradation of quality, but it's not harmful. Okay, it's not harmful. It's just formation of cloud. It's just how the oil reacts to environment when it's being stored for a while. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And another question is here. How is the oil palm phenolics extracted from palm oil bio waste?
They use a particular solvent. As I showed in my presentation just now, they use a particular solvent you can extract, and you have to filter lah to get the oil palm phenolics. Yeah.
Right. I think last question for today. Is it safe to use red palm oil if it has expired after 6 months?
That's an interesting question.
Yes.
Honestly, personally, if anything has gone past its expiry date, do not consume it, whether it's red palm oil or anything at all. Okay, guys? But yeah, that would be my response to that. But yeah, I don't want to take responsibility if anything happens.
Okay, and I think it looks like we have covered all the questions today. And Ms. Darius, is there anything else you wanted to cover before wrap up?
Yeah, I think if you guys have any question, you can just email it to me lah. arich@ntoc.org.my.
Yes.
And because at NTOC, what we do is basically we promote and market palm oil, and we do a lot of like awareness programs. So if you, let's say, if you need someone to maybe raise awareness on palm oil and palm oil products like red palm oil or anything, can always contact me, or just contact NPOC lah. You can visit the website as well.
So I hope the audiences can contact her directly. She has given the email address as well.
Yes.
And
also, additionally, a lot of the things that I covered in my presentation are available on our website. So there's so much information there. You can read more on how it affects blood cholesterol. You can read more on saturated fat. And in fact, on diabetes, we have also produced an article on that as well. So yes, please go to our website and you can find yourself so many things to read on.
All right. Great. So thank you so much once again, Ms. Arish, for the excellent presentation today. It was very informative and we appreciate you being here. And for the audience, thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time. And you have further questions related to today's topic, kindly email us or Ms. Arish. And check out our upcoming webinars on various topics related to F&B industry. Link will be placed in the chat box for registration. So register now. Thank you once again. Stay tuned with our Future Food webinar series. Have a great day ahead. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.